What did you learn from your parents, your upbringing, your teachers, your background? What opinions do you have? What beliefs do you have because of what you were taught when you were a child? And have you changed any of those ideas as you've gotten older? For me, it's a very personal question because I was brought up in a very unique environment. My mother was a nurse in the Second World War in Berlin in Germany. She was a very hard-ass woman. Can you imagine what she went through? She was evacuated by the Americans, and the matron of her hospital, the last 3 days of the war, locked her in a cupboard and said, don't come out of that cupboard because if the Russians come first, you'll be in deep trouble. My mother was a very beautiful woman. I'm sharing that with you because my mother had some very strong ideas. She was tough, she was resilient, she survived where most people would have died. And my father the same. The reason my parents met, my father was in Auschwitz concentration camp, and when that was freed by the Americans, my father was taken to a hospital in Berlin and my mother helped him get better, and then they came to Australia. I'm sharing that with you because the things that my parents taught me were really, really shaped my life. But if you've ever heard about the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I had a rich father and a very poor mother. My father, who went through horrible stuff, said, I'm never going to live like that again. We're going to have the best of the best of the best. And his whole life was focused on let's be wealthy, let's be happy, let's have great things in our life because I've seen the worst and I don't want my kids to grow up like that. My mother, who went without food for a very long time because there was no food in Berlin in Germany at the end of the war, had a thing. She became very frugal. She became very stingy, some people would say. And she also, interestingly, became very overweight because she couldn't waste any food. Because she'd been without food, she needed to eat a lot of food. I'm sharing this with you because we're all shaped by something. We're shaped by our parents' experience. We're shaped by our religion, our culture, the people around us. So my mother said some really interesting things when I was growing up, and she was a nurse. So a lot of her opinions and a lot of her direction to her children was about how to be healthy, how to be fit, and how to be strong. Now here's where it becomes very interesting and ironic, because I became an exercise professional, and our industry, our profession, I would like to call it a profession, but most people that work as an exercise person aren't very professional for this reason. They just believe what everybody says. So we get told a lot of stuff. You should eat this way, exercise this way, and people's opinions seem to be structured by other people's opinions. Well, my mother's opinions, of course, were structured by her life experience. But my mother had to get people to survive when there was no medicine, no pharmaceuticals, no bandages, My mother was a nurse who had to really make the most of every situation but had nothing to use as a resource to help people stay alive. So my mother was very focused on exactly what I'm doing at the moment, being outside in the fresh air and sunshine. At my house, you were never allowed to go inside. You had to be outside all day. The only time you could come in is if it was dark, then you could come inside. My mother was focused very much on fresh air. And we have a joke, all of my brothers and sisters, and I'm one of 5, we all joke because every morning my mother would put everybody's beds outside. Everybody's blankets, pillows, sheets, everything has to get fresh air and sunshine because sunshine kills germs. You've got to get sun on your skin. At our house, there was never any talk about sunscreen because obviously my mother didn't have any use. There was no sunscreen when she was growing up. But in horrible war-torn Germany, whenever the sun was out, my mother would take all the patients in the hospital outside into the sun because she knew that the body produced vitamin D, and vitamin D helped you get better. It was part of the immune system. It was also, obviously, vitamin D it's involved in literally every part of your body, including your brain health, your bone health, your heart health. And my mother knew that either instinctively, I don't know if she was taught that in nurses' school. So I was brought up with sunshine, fresh air, freezing cold water. So I was thrown into a cold shower. That was the first shower I ever had. I was thrown into a cold swimming pool, I think pretty much after the day I was born, because my mother knew that we needed to learn how to swim because we lived in Australia and there's lots of ocean and rivers. But we skied, snow skied in the winter, we water skied in the summer. We were constantly in cold water, fresh air and sunshine. My mother didn't believe in packaged food. My mother ate far too much food because she loved food, but it was always nuts, whole grains, fresh fruit and vegetables. My father loved growing fresh fruit and vegetables because obviously if you're in Auschwitz concentration camp, there's not too much of that going on. And he believed in the best of everything. So we always had great cherries, great watermelon. My father was the best chef, so the food was always cooked from fresh food, real food, lean meat. Everything about my upbringing was, and I'm just going to wrap this up because it's ironic. This is so funny. There was never a gym, was never talk about going to the gym, but we were active, fresh air, sunshine, real food, community. We used to have a kitchen table with 12 seats, and my father used to fill up that table with strange people all the time. I was brought up in a Christian religious environment, and my dad used to just collect all the people from church who he didn't know and bring them home for dinner, for lunch. And we would feed all these strange people with this fantastic, my father was Hungarian. This is a very personal story, but I live in a world now where we've done it seems like a complete 180. We used to talk about diets and exercise and going to the gym, and I know a lot of people still do, but the people that are really focused on being healthy and living a very long time with great quality of life are all talking about fresh air, sunshine, limited use of sunscreen, make sure you see the sunrise, make sure you see the sunset. One of the things my mum used to say, if you look into the sunset with no sunglasses on at the end of the day, it's good for your eyes and it'll help you reduce risk of cancer. Now, we thought my mum was a crazy person, but there's a lot of oncologists now that are saying exactly that. There's a lot of medical professionals that are saying never miss a sunrise, never miss a sunset, and don't look into the sun with sunglasses on. Make sure you've got bare skin and bare eyes. There's a lot of people now talking about there's some challenges with sunscreen because it's a chemical, and when you put chemicals on your skin, it blocks this vitamin D. And I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. It's just ironic that we seem to have done a complete turnaround. But my mother, my resilient, tough, strong mother, taught me all of that when I was a kid. So I don't need to know about ice baths because I've always had a cold shower. I don't need to know about getting out into the sun because that was my whole life. And I was brought up in Albury in New South Wales in Australia, and the summers were really hot. I never had sunscreen, and my mother, well, this is a bit embarrassing, but our family used to run around naked because my mother was never embarrassed about being naked. So we got full sun all the time. Great fresh food, positive attitude, great people to hang out with. So I'm standing here as an old lady with my kids behind me because I have 5 beautiful puppy dogs who get fresh air and sunshine and exercise and great food every day. I don't have children, so that's how I look after my kids. And it's ironic because that's how I was brought up. That's how I now bring up my kids. And it seems that the world's heading in that direction. Now, everyone's got an opinion about how to eat and how to exercise and what you should do. But doesn't it make sense that if you're inside all the time in air-conditioned air, artificial light, you don't get any fresh air or sunshine, that your body could be less physically developed or less physically healthy than if you're outside getting fresh air. I live in the South Island of New Zealand for a reason. If you have a look at the kids down here, they're different than city kids. Country kids get sick less. They run around barefoot. This is one of the things my mother always used to say, don't wear shoes. Get dirty. How can you have a strong immune system if you don't get dirty, if you don't put your hands in dog poo and dirty things? And it was never about wash your hands and use sanitizer. It was always, you've got a strong immune system. Make your immune system stronger by doing the things that get it stronger. So fresh air and sunshine and cold water and get dirty. Well, this thing now that's become a fad or a fashion is earthing. Put your feet in the sand or in the dirt every day to get a feel for the earth. Well, my mother taught me that when I was a kid. And I'm sharing that because we can all have an opinion. You can go to the gym and lift weights in air-conditioned air with artificial light. The fun one I always consider really weird is why would you ride a bike in a class? Most of the spin classes are in a dark room, air-conditioned air, loud music, and no fresh air. I don't understand that. Now, people love to do spin classes, I get that. But is it possible that if you go out riding a bike, especially where I live in the South Island of New Zealand where there's the best bike tracks in the world, that you might have more of a benefit from being outside in the fresh air and sunshine? I'll rephrase. Whatever you're doing to be healthy, fit and strong, if it's working, congratulations. And I always ask those 4 questions. Do you have a stack of energy? Are you performing at your best? Do you love what you see in the mirror? And are you getting the results that you want? If the answer is no, do something different. So as a woman who spent my entire life inside a gym, I've managed health clubs all over the world. I've been a gym person all of my life. I don't care if I never go to the gym ever again, because I lift logs and rocks, and I run in soft sand, and I run up hills and mountains, and I'm by fresh air and lakes and rivers and in the most beautiful place in the world. But I've designed that because I want to live my life like that, because I want to be healthy, fit and strong. So whatever you do, if you're a parent, a teacher, a coach, a boss or a leader, and you want to be a living example for your kids, I want to thank my parents for being a living example for me. And I really would hope that if you have children or you have people in your life that are looking at you for an example, they're looking at you for inspiration and motivation, that you are the living example of all of those things. You always have a stack of energy. You always perform at your best. You love what you see in the mirror. You're getting the results that you want from whatever you're doing. And most importantly, that's a lifetime thing, not just a short, I'm going on a diet because I've got to fit into my jeans for a special event, or I'm going on a diet and exercise program because I'm going on holidays, or I'm getting married. How about I want to be healthy, fit and strong for the rest of my life, and I want my family to see that it's possible, rather than send them off to sport or send them off to martial arts or send them off to gymnastics, and I stay at home and watch television inside on my ass, air-conditioned air, artificial light. I want to live my life to the max as a living example for the people in my life to see that it's possible to be healthy, fit and strong. How about you? I'm out here with my kids and I love them dearly. Super duper doo. How are you? Loving my 5 puppy dogs. Hello, Bentley. Hello, gorgeous boy. Woohoo!